have indicated that they want to restore what they call those lousy bilateral relations. But the question, from the situation in Syria to NATO to questions about Russian adventurism to Crimea, how difficult might it be for these two leaders to find common ground?
Well, George, I think it's going to be very difficult indeed. I mean, one of the reasons relations have become so damaged between the United States and Russia isn't just because of the personal frostiness between President Obama and President Putin. It's because there really are clashes of national interests on a whole range of diplomatic issues around the world. We'll take Syria, for instance. Trump has indicated in his campaign that he was willing to join forces with Russia to eliminate Islamic State and other jihadist groups. But of course, that runs the risk of, first of all, alienating traditional allies like Turkey and the Gulf states, but also aligning the United States under Trump with Bashar al-Assad, the Syrian president, and with Iran, which of course is also fighting on behalf of Bashar al-Assad in Syria. In Ukraine, there's also problems when it comes to the Trump promise to look again at recognizing the Russian annexation of Crimea in 2014. That would upset the Ukrainians, of course, but it would also upset the larger European Union, who are very concerned about Russian militarism and expansion in Eastern Europe. And so, yeah, in theory, this is a pivotal moment. It could be that the Trump presidency is able to draw a line under the problems of the past several years and look at these problems with a fresh eye. But the problems are not going to go away overnight. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how the Trump presidency and the Putin administration here in Russia work with each other to resolve any of these big issues.
Before this election, before the results of the election, there was certainly heated rhetoric on both sides of the pond. Certainly in Russia, there was the comment that an election of Hillary Clinton could lead to a World War III. So now that Donald Trump is the president-elect, what is the response from just everyday Russians about this American election?
Well, I think there's a degree of relief because of what the state media has been putting out, because of the general tone of the rhetoric here in Russia about the possibility of a Clinton presidency. There was real concern, I think, that the relationship between Russia and the United States was deteriorating to a very dangerous level. Remember, they are nuclear superpowers. There was talk in the Hillary camp of imposing, for instance, no-fly zones in Syria, which would to protect civilian areas. And that would have potentially brought, according to US military officials, the United States into direct military confrontation, not just with the Syrian government, but with the Russians as well, who have their air force carrying out airstrikes in Syria. So there was that potential for catastrophic confrontation between these nuclear superpowers. And that was something that was, I think, quite acutely felt by the Kremlin and felt by the people of Russia. So to answer your question, look, I think people are very relieved in Russia in general that Hillary did not get elected as president of the United States, because they saw her as dangerous and anti-Russian. But the jury is still out. Even though they support Trump, the jury is still out on what he is going to do. He's such an unknown quantity and unpredictable that the jury is still out on what the relationship is going to be like between Trump and Putin.
Trump always saying that being unpredictable is part of his advantage. As you say, we will see how it all plays out in the months ahead. Senior international correspondent Matthew Chance live in Moscow. Matthew, thank you for your reporting today.
During his campaign, Trump promised to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, but that would be an extremely controversial move. We learned why from CNN's Oren Lieberman.
This has been Marwan Smera's spot for 50 years. This is the most beautiful city in the world, he says. Our city. For me, these old stairs at Damascus Gate are better than all the castles in the world. He sells fresh juice on some of the most contested land in Jerusalem, perhaps even the world.
Here, just outside the old city of Jerusalem, the light rail line at this point very nearly follows the Green Line. For decades, this has been the line between largely Palestinian East Jerusalem and largely Israeli West Jerusalem. If President-elect Donald Trump follows through on his campaign promise to recognize an undivided Jerusalem, this line may be no more than a light rail line.
Jerusalem has always been the most difficult question in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Even after the world recognized the State of Israel in 1948, it left the final status of Jerusalem open to future negotiations. Israelis see it as their united capital. Palestinians see East Jerusalem as their capital of a future Palestinian state. The city's mayor, Nir Barkat, says Trump's election means, once and for all, Jerusalem will always be Israel.
The role of the city of Jerusalem will never change. It has to be under the sovereignty of the Jewish people. It has to play an inclusive role. It can never function as a divided city.
There are already 2 American consulates in Jerusalem, one west and one east. Trump has promised to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, recognizing the holy city as the capital of Israel. There's even a plot of land picked out. Israel has leased this open field to the United States for $1 a year ever since 1989. This lease runs 99 years, waiting for an American embassy to be built here. But every president for more than 20 years has refused to move it. To do so would break decades of U.S. and UN policy. Mahdi Abdelhadi, a Palestinian political analyst, says the field will stay empty.
So what's new? It's only rhetoric, it's only slogan. Although it's very much symbolic to tell us, you Palestinians will not have a capital in Jerusalem. And nobody can dismiss our presence in Jerusalem. We are deep-rooted here.
The morning after the elections, U.S. Ambassador to Israel Dan Shapiro was asked about the promise to move the embassy to Jerusalem. It was a question he didn't want to touch.
I serve on the policy of my government. Every U.S. administration that has looked at the question has determined that the embassy is where it should be, and I can't speculate beyond that.
After President-elect Donald Trump takes office, Shapiro may be out as ambassador. An uncertain future in more ways than one. Warren Lieberman, CNN, Jerusalem.
The gentleman in that report said that it's just rhetoric, but interesting to know that that land is leased for $1. Whether the president-elect fulfills that campaign promise, we'll have to see in the coming months.
Rhetoric versus policy.
Yeah, indeed.
We'll all find out pretty soon.
Well, Donald Trump and his wife Melania are preparing for a new life. On Thursday, they visited the White House.
Melania chatted with First Lady Michelle Obama, and Trump, as you know, met with President Obama. CNN's Randy Kay now has more on Melania's path to the U.S. First Lady.
It will be my honor and privilege to serve this country. I will be an advocate for women and for children.
Melania Trump, just days before learning she would be the next First Lady of the United States. At this speech in Berwyn, Pennsylvania, she spoke of her love for this country as a little girl growing up under communist rule in Slovenia.
We always knew about the incredible place called America. America was the word for freedom and opportunity. America meant if you could dream it, you could become it.
Throughout the race, Melania was somewhat of a reluctant campaigner, often staying home with the couple's young son, Barron. The Trumps reportedly have a cook, but no nanny. Early on in the campaign, she was more often seen than heard. In fact, it wasn't until the Wisconsin primary in April that Melania officially stumped for her husband.
I'm very proud of him. He's a hard worker, he's kind, he has a great heart, he's tough, he's smart.
In March, during an interview with Anderson Cooper, Melania shared how she feels about being compared to Jackie Kennedy.
I see around that they compare me to Jackie Kennedy. It's an honor, but of course we're in 21st century and I will be different. And she had a great style and she did a lot of good stuff. But this is different time now.
As a Slovenian immigrant, Melania will be only the second foreign-born First Lady and the first in modern times. President John Quincy Adams' wife, Louisa Adams, was also born outside the United States in London. She was the First Lady nearly 200 years ago. Melania Knaus, as she was formerly known, became a naturalized citizen in 2006. At 5'11", she was once a successful model, meeting Donald Trump at a New York Fashion Week party back in 1998. She told People magazine she thought he had, quote, sparkle, and later became his third wife. Melania once graced the covers of glamour magazines and sold her own line of jewelry on QVC. She also appeared in this Aflac commercial. As First Lady, Melania, who is 46, plans to focus on women and children. She hopes to end cyberbullying and teach children to treat others with compassion.
We have to find a better way to talk to each other, to disagree with each other, to respect each other.
From Fifth Avenue to Pennsylvania Avenue, Melania Trump will soon be First Lady. Randy Kay, CNN, Orlando, Florida.
I wonder if she's really grasped that, or she's saying, wow, what a ride I've had in the United States.
It's a big title. It's a new life for the Trumps.
Absolutely.
Still ahead here on Newsroom, how realistic is that border wall between the United States and Mexico, the one that Donald Trump promised? He says the border will be a top priority in his first days of office. In fact, day one. Reaction from Mexico is still ahead.
Plus, what some anti-Trump protesters are doing instead of taking to the streets.